we'll pay your energy bills. Got £1,000 as well. Here we go. Round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. It's your energy bill.
Oh my God, thank you.
We're paying your energy bill for 4 months.
This is my first video update for Tuesday morning, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. You saw the opening segment, the little video clip that I put up there from the morning show in the UK. I believe the show is called This Morning, if I'm not mistaken. But that segment is making the rounds on social media. And I'll put a link for the full, 1 minute clip in the description box down below. But I didn't do that for copyright reasons. But what a disturbing little game show that they concocted. I mean, they're mocking us, are they not? They are absolutely mocking us. And that's what I got out of this little game show. You know, spin the wheel and us elites, right? The elite class will pay for your energy for 4 months, or we'll give you cash. You know, hee ha ha. I mean, they're mocking us. And they're making a mockery of the entire UK. That's how I saw it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but at first you kind of, chuckle. That's your first reaction, is to kind of laugh a little bit. But then when you think about the message that little game show, that little skit is putting out there, man, these people, I'm telling you, they are absolutely sinister. What have they done? What have they done to the UK that they've brought it to this level? And then they sit there and they put together this little skit, kind of, they're poking at you, They're making fun of you, and they're saying, yeah, we'll either give you cash, or we'll give you, or we'll pay your energy bill for 4 months. How about that? Look at how generous we are. I'm telling you, what a terrible, terrible skit. Whoever thought that one up, man, what a bad idea that was. Anyway, let's talk about gas. Let's talk about energy. And we have the statement coming out from the Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, which has been taken out of context. I believe that his statement has been misinterpreted, probably on purpose, actually definitely on purpose, because what Dmitry Peskov said is being used as confirmation from the collective West, the leadership of the collective West, and the mainstream media, as confirmation that Russia did indeed turn off the gas because of sanctions. I mean, directly turned off the gas because of sanctions. And that's not really the case. I mean, there's no doubt at all, that Russia leveraged the incompetence of the collective West leadership, the arrogance, the hysteria, the hubris, but more than anything, the stupidity and the incompetence of the collective West leadership. They absolutely leveraged it in order to eventually get the gas flows to zero. Okay, for that there's no doubt. The Russians understood that the collective West has 15,000 sanctions in place, and if maintenance troubles and issues were to come up in Gazprom, the Russians understood that the collective West, the Germans, the Canadians, given all the sanctions they've put in place, they're going to have a difficult time navigating all the sanctions, all the sanction restrictions. And so the Russians understood that. They leveraged it, and they eventually, over time, they got Nord Stream down to zero. Nord Stream 1 down to zero. But at no time did the Russian government say that they're turning off the gas directly because of sanctions. In other words, The EU placed sanctions, we're turning off the gas. At no time did Russia say that or do that. But the statement from Peskov has been misinterpreted and leveraged by the collective West to give that impression. And you have people like Vander Crazy who are now tweeting out that, you see, we told you that Russia was using energy and gas as a weapon, because look at what the Kremlin spokesperson said. And I'll read you his quote so you can have context as to what exactly Peskov said. And you can decide as to the meaning behind his statements. And I'm just going to get to that little park over there in that shade, and then I'll read you what he said. But when I read his statement, to me, I was like, you know what? He's just basically saying what we all know, which is there's no gas going to Europe because you guys can't fix a damn turbine because of all the sanctions that you've placed. That's what I got out of his statement. I didn't get the narrative of, well, you place sanctions on us, we're going to cut off the gas. You know, direct quid pro quo kind of thing. That's not what I got from his statement. And that's not what Russia did. And we have to be totally honest about that. No doubt, Russia leveraged the incompetence and stupidity of the collective West. For that, there's no doubt. And they used that to their advantage. But it wasn't a direct shutoff because of sanctions. And that's what Peskov means in his statement. So let me read you what he said. So the Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, blamed EU, UK, and Canadian sanctions for Russia's failure to deliver gas through the key pipeline, which delivers gas to Germany from St. Petersburg via the Baltic Sea. Problems in gas deliveries arose due to sanctions that may have been imposed on our country, and a number of companies by Western countries, including Germany and the UK. There are no other reasons behind supply issues, Peskov noted. The Kremlin spokesman also claimed that it is not Gazprom's fault that the Europeans absolutely absurdly make a decision to refuse to service their equipment, which they are contractually obligated to do. Peskov stressed that all Nord Stream 1 operations hinge on one piece of equipment that needs serious maintenance. There you have it. I mean, I read that statement, and to me, he's saying it right there. There's this piece of equipment, the turbine, which needs maintenance, and because of all the sanctions you put in place, you can't figure out a way to maintain it, to fix it and get it back to us. That's simple, as dictated in the terms and the contract. And I think that's important because the contract has a certain process, which they can't seem to follow, Canada and Germany, because of the sanctions. So, you know, they're trying to patch things together, to piece things together and say, okay, well, the turbine can go from Canada and it can arrive in Germany, and then Germany will send it, but we won't have the right documentation, but trust us, everything is okay. And Gazprom is saying, no, we have a certain process in place. We have a certain contract in place. We want you to follow that process and that contract for returning the turbine. And we want the proper documentation. And in order to avoid this from happening in the future, we would like the equipment in Nord Stream to be exempt from sanctions in order to avoid this in the future. And what's happening? The collective West is buckling. They can't figure it out. Instead, you have Olaf Scholz in Germany taking photos with the turbine, doing like media PR stunts and pretending to inspect the turbine. Remember that? When he showed up at the factory and pretended to inspect the turbine and say, oh yeah, this turbine looks good. Oh yeah, it's good. It's got my thumbs up, my seal of approval, the seal of approval of Olaf Scholz. Let's send it to Russia. Just complete stupidity, silly stuff is what they've resorted to. And so that's the message that Peskov is saying. You have the deputy prime minister, Alexander Novak, pretty much saying the same thing with regard to gas supplies via Nord Stream 1. He said the entire problem lies precisely on the EU side because all the conditions of the repair contract have been completely violated, along with the terms of shipping of the equipment. And that is the point. That is the main point. That is why the sanctions have led to the shutdown of Nord Stream 1. It is because, as Novak rightly says in his statement, the entire problem lies precisely on the EU side because conditions of the repair contract have been completely violated, along with terms of shipment of the equipment. Perfectly said. Perfectly summed up from the Deputy Prime Minister. I mean, what do the Europeans expect Gazprom or Russia to do? You've placed 15,000 sanctions on Russia. You don't allow Canada to, the sanctions stipulate that Canada can't send the turbines directly to Russia. And then you have to create this carve out where Canada sends it to Germany and then Germany sends it to Russia. The paperwork is not in order. You've placed restrictions on payments, right? It's difficult now to even pay Russia, given all the restrictions that the collective West has placed on Russia and on Gazprom. What do you expect them to do? I mean, the EU, they've made the entire process of completing maintenance, they've made it impossible. They've shot themselves in both feet and both hands. And as Orban says, in the lungs as well. Orban's famous line. So yeah, that's the point that Peskov is making. But Ursula von der Crazy and much of the collective West, they jumped on his statement and they misinterpreted it, in my opinion, to make it seem like Peskov was saying, you see, we shut off the gas because you placed sanctions. It was a tit for tat move. It wasn't like that. Russia played the game much smarter than that. It's almost like they knew that these guys are incompetent, leaders, and they're going to mess up. Just watch. And that's what they said. And they just sat back and let them mess up. And then they took advantage of it. Some judo moves from Putin, the judo master, I guess. But Ursula is claiming, no. This is proof. Peskov's statement is proof that this was a tit for tat move. Shutting down Nord Stream was tit for tat because of the sanctions. Nothing else. And she put out this tweet. She said, Putin is using energy as a weapon by cutting supply and manipulating our energy markets. He will fail. Europe will prevail. The EU Commission is preparing proposals to help vulnerable households and businesses to cope with energy prices. Right. So Ursula's going to, she's going to take her marching orders from the Davos elite that are above her, and they're telling her, centralize more. This is a good opportunity for the EU to centralize more power, and that's what she's going to try to do. That's what the EU is going to try to do. They're going to try to rewire everything in the European Union and make it so that energy, gas, electricity, oil is completely centralized and completely controlled by the European Union, regardless of whether the people suffer or whether the people have lights or not, or have hot water or not. That's not going to be the point. The EU is more than happy to have the population sacrifice as long as they don't protest too much. As long as they don't protest too much, then they're fine with having their own population live in terrible conditions if it means that this could be an opportunity for them to centralize more power to the core, to Brussels. And that's exactly what the EU is going to try to do. As far as helping households and stuff like that, how exactly are they going to help households? Printing more? By giving out 300 euros a month, which is what Germany said they're going to do to households. They're going to give them a stipend, a loan of 300, a grant of 300 a month in order for them to pay their energy bills. But how long are they going to keep that up? How long can that last? One winter? One summer? Another winter? How long? What did Germany say they're going to give? Something like 60 billion or 80 billion euros to help households pay for their energy bills. You can't keep it up forever. That's for sure. I mean, look at this from the Telegraph. Now, the UK obviously not in the EU, but it's the same problem. Look at this tweet from the Telegraph. Energy bill at Tom Kerridge's pub to leap from £60,000 to £420,000. Celebrity chef warns that hospitality sector faces terrifying and scary landscape as owners say they may close over Christmas. And that's coming from the Telegraph in the UK. The Telegraph despises all the UK media. They despise Putin. They despise Russia. And they're saying here that, they're going to end up paying, from 60,000 to 420,000. They're going to end up, the pubs are going to end up paying an amount that's just not doable. You're going to have to close. You can't make that kind of payment. You're finished. It's over for you. But the Telegraph doesn't say how things can get fixed. And it's not going to fix all the problems, but a small, simple step that could happen that the EU kleptocrats and the newly minted Prime Minister of the UK, Liz Truss, could do is lift the sanctions, roll back the sanctions. If you really care about your people, if you really care about the pubs, if you really care about your small businesses, if you really care about your big industry, and the people who work in those industries, all you have to do is roll back the sanctions, but they won't do it. And the Telegraph will never say why the bill is going from 60,000 to 420,000. It's not because of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. It's because of the dumb sanctions that the collective West placed on Russia. That's why. And these sanctions could easily be rolled back. Yeah, you're going to pay a political price, no doubt about it. No doubt about it, but at least you save your country. At least you save your country. Moody's says that a complete cutoff of Russian gas will likely lead to severe recession. Credit rating agency Moody's has warned that a complete cutoff of Russian gas will likely lead to a severe recession in Europe and a further increase in already high inflation. It said the most exposed companies are in energy-intensive sectors such as chemicals, automotive, and manufacturing sectors. It added that European utilities will also be among the most exposed, mostly due to their indirect exposure to higher gas and electricity prices. So that is coming from Moody's. In Sweden and in Austria, they are bailing out energy companies. On Wednesday, Austria, which announced it would bail out the country's main energy supplier with a 2 billion euro loan, the AFP reported. Chancellor Karl Nehammer said the loan to Wine Energy was an extraordinary rescue measure to ensure its 2 million customers, mainly Vienna households, continue to receive electricity. It will run until next April. Vine Energy asked for a bailout this weekend after suffering financial trouble amid soaring energy prices and speculation. The company mismanaged their funds. Nehammer said, Vine Energy, which is owned by Vienna, could have to answer questions as to how they got into trouble. In Sweden, Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson said the government would offer hundreds of billions of kroner in support to electricity producers, according to the FT. The PM warned that left unchecked, rising collateral demands for electricity producers could ripple through the main NASDAQ clearing market in Stockholm and in the worst case, spark a financial crisis. Her remarks came after Russia said on Friday evening that it would no longer supply gas via Nord Stream 1 pipeline. That announcement came after energy markets had closed for the weekend. She timed her announcement carefully. Yesterday's announcement not only risks leading to a war winter, but also threatens our financial stability, Andersson said, standing alongside Sweden's financial regulator, central bank governor, and finance minister at an emergency press conference on Saturday. Sweden's dramatic action underscored the seriousness of the situation facing Europe as it scrambles to secure enough energy ahead of the winter and tries to avoid the spread of distress among electricity producers. They're bailing out energy companies the European Union has reached the point where they have to bail out freaking energy companies one by one, country after country. Germany, Austria, Sweden. Who's next? Who's going to be the next EU country to have to bail out their energy companies? They're bailing out households. They're giving 300 euros to citizens so that they can pay their electricity bills. They're bailing out their electric companies. For what? For Zelensky? Really? All of this for Zelensky? Unbelievable. So Salvini in Italy, once the leader of Italy, was going to be the prime minister of Italy, but still in the running to be a prominent force in the coalition government, he was speaking at a conference of political leaders on Sunday on Lake Como, and Salvini claimed that the sanctions meant to punish Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine had in fact helped Russia, resulting in an export surplus of 140 billion during the year ending July 2022. Do we have to defend Ukraine? Yes, Salvini said, but I would not want the sanctions to harm those who impose them more than those who are hit by them. So is Salvini, is this conference close to Zelensky's Tuscany villa that he's renting for $50,000 a month? But first listen to Salvini's first statement. And it kind of shows you that Salvini has moved more towards supporting the European Union. He's definitely shifted to become more of a globalist EU guy, because he says, do we have to defend Ukraine? Yes. Why? How come there's not a reporter in Italy that immediately followed up with a question to Salvini saying, why? Do we have a treaty in place with Ukraine? Is Italy, are they obliged via a treaty to come to Ukraine's aid? If so, can we see that treaty? Why is Italy obligated to help Ukraine? I mean, I'm not saying which side Italy should take. Don't take Russia's side, don't take Ukraine's side, stay neutral. Why are you obligated to take a side? Why would you be obligated to take Russia's side, for that matter? You're not. Stay neutral. Stay out of this. This is not your fight. Right? This is not your fight. But nope, Salvini has to show his globalist stripes. You know, that's why I don't trust. I used to trust Salvini. We'll see. We'll see if and when they get power, what happens there. But let's switch to oil now, because we had all the talk about price caps, G7 oil price caps. And by the way, on a quick side note, Ursula von der Crazy, she was talking about putting a price cap on gas. Go ahead. Put whatever price cap you want on gas. What gas, Ursula? What gas? Why don't you make your price cap? Why don't you set your price cap at €1? There you go. We'll buy all the gas you have in the world for €1. Russia, we'll buy all the gas you have at €1. That's our price cap. Sure. €1 it is. What gas, Ursula, now? What gas are you going to put a cap on? Talk about just getting outplayed, completely outplayed at every freaking turn. Completely outplayed by Russia. It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing to watch the level of incompetence at the EU level. Anyway, talking about incompetence, the G7 was all proud that they got an oil price cap announced, right? The G7, they're going to dictate to the world. 15% of the population is going to dictate to the other 85% what the price of oil will be. And of course, Saudi Arabia and OPEC Plus is going to agree to this, right? Yeah, sure. We're not going to decide the price of oil anymore. We'll give it to you guys. Of course not. Of course not. And so what is the first move that Saudi Arabia makes? Well, Saudi Arabia decides to cut oil production by 100,000 barrels a day, starting in October. According to Zero Hedge, this is the first paragraph they have on this story. They say, and there it is. The half-life of the infamous fist bump proved to be less than 2 months, with a delegate telling Reuters that OPEC Plus has agreed to 100,000 barrel per day reduction in oil output for October. And of course, they're referencing the fist bump between Biden and MBS when they met in Saudi Arabia, where the collective West mainstream media said, oh, you see, Biden got a deal for Saudi Arabia to ramp up production. And isn't Biden the best? And isn't he an incredible negotiator? When in fact, Saudi Arabia completely debunked that narrative. And they said, no. We didn't come to any agreement. No deal. Yes, we are going to increase capacity, but that's already been in the works. And that's planned for 2027. And nothing is going to happen in the short term. Well, now things have gotten even worse because at least Saudi Arabia might have kept things level. At least they might have kept production capacity, production output level. But because of this bonehead G7 move to decide to flex your muscles and to impose this fictitious imaginary oil price cap, well, you pissed off OPEC Plus, you pissed off Saudi Arabia, and now you got production cuts. Congratulations, G7. Good job. Really, really good work there. Demilitarization. I remember when I was in Thessaloniki about a couple months ago, I said in a video on Aristotle Square, I said, you know what? Looking at the inventory problems that the U.S. has with javelins, and Bulgaria decided at that time, Bulgaria said they have no more inventory to give to Ukraine, and Greece was running low. And I said, you know, this is not really a demilitarization of Ukraine anymore. This is a demilitarization of Europe. And that is what we have now, is a demilitarization of Europe and the collective West. And we are getting reports now that and this is coming from Borrell, actually, so these aren't even reports, but Borrell is coming out and he's openly admitting that the stockpiles in the EU are now depleted. The military stocks of most member states have been, I wouldn't say exhausted, but depleted in a high proportion because we have been providing a lot of capacity to the Ukrainians, Borrell said during a debate with lawmakers in the European Parliament, adding that the arsenal will have to be refilled. More MIC contracts, of course. But still, those MIC contracts are not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years to get the stockpiles replenished. The top diplomat said EU member states must start coordinating their military spending to avoid too many duplications and a waste of money. If countries don't coordinate properly, the result will be a big waste of money because this is not a way of canceling our duplications. There are a lot of them, or filling our gaps, and there it is. Centralization. What's the answer? What's the answer to all of these EU-made problems and all of these EU-made crises? The problem is more EU. How do you solve the energy problem? How do you solve the electricity problem, the gas, the oil problem? More centralization, more EU. How do you solve the military problem? How do you solve the weapons depletion problem? More EU. We got to centralize everything. Centralize the planning, centralize the purchasing, centralize the production. More centralization. That's going to solve everything. A lot of countries are against this, by the way, and they've stated as much. I believe Hungary, of course. Hungary was the one country that said, this is crazy. We're not going to sit here and plan our entire military budget in coordination with the European Union. We're a sovereign state. We're going to do what we want to do with regards to military spending, and we're going to produce what we want to produce with who we want to produce it with, and we don't need the EU's central planning model. But Borrell is saying it. That's the way you solve this, is through centralization. So let me wrap it up here because it's really, really hot. outside, and I think I want to get to the clown world here. And this clown world is super good. This is a super good clown world. Real quick, before I get to my clown world, there is an article from The Hill, a report from The Hill, which is stating that the U.S. needs to become and is becoming more aggressive with regards to its support for Ukraine. In other words, the U.S. now is looking to send more lethal weapons to Ukraine. We're talking about weapons depletion, javelins and stingers and what else, switchblade drones and all this stuff. But it now looks like the U.S. may actually dig into their long-range missiles and much more lethal missiles, because according to The Hill, the Pentagon believes that Russia has not reacted in a way they thought they would react with regards to the HIMARS and the MLRS systems. And they're seeing this as a sign that if they send more lethal missiles to Ukraine, longer range weapons to Ukraine, that could actually do damage to Crimea, which is they've got Crimea on their mind, then Russia is not going to do anything with this either. They're just going to sit back and take this. Those are the vibes. That shows you how poorly the Pentagon is reading the Russians. They're seeing the Russians' restraint as a sign of weakness, and they're seeing it as a green light for them to send more lethal, longer range weapons. And the Hill article is saying that now. They're saying that, according to a former diplomat, Moscow bluffed and blustered, but they haven't been provoked. Earlier, Russian officials warned they would consider Western arms convoys to be legitimate military targets, particularly when they reach Ukrainian territory. Yet no such convoys have been hit so far, although the Russian military reported striking Ukrainian military facilities housing Western military equipment on several occasions. Now the fear of provoking the Russians has gone down within the Biden administration, according to this Pentagon official named William Taylor, former U.S. ambassador to Kiev. The instincts of the people in the departments and agencies, particularly state and defense, and the intelligence community, are to be more forward-leaning and more aggressive. So their instinct now is to see Russian restraint as Russian bluffing, and perhaps they've run out of javelins and javelinas. But if you take what the Hill is saying as fact, well, then it looks like they're going to start to send some weapons that can do damage to Crimea, or try to do damage to Crimea. And this is kind of confirmed by statements from the Zelensky government, where they do say that, or they're urging Crimeans to take hiding, to take refuge, because they're going to start attacking Crimea. Kiev issued a warning to people living in what is called occupied territories, including the Crimean Peninsula, to prepare shelter and stock up on supplies. The appeal was shared to Twitter on Monday by an advisor to Ukrainian President Zelensky. Michael Podolyak urged residents of the occupied territories, including the Crimean Peninsula, to follow the officials' recommendations during deoccupation measures. Furthermore, people should prepare a bomb shelter, stock up on sufficient amounts of water, and charge power banks right now. Podolyak concluded his warning with this line: everything will be Ukraine. So you have Podolyak stating that the Zelensky regime is going to start attacking Crimea, and he's sending out warnings via Twitter that is what they're planning to do. And then you get this report from The Hill saying that the Pentagon is starting to flirt with longer range missiles and more lethal weapons going to Ukraine. For what purpose? For the purpose, I would imagine, it's for the purpose of striking Russian territory, I imagine. But that's another story I wanted to talk about before I get to my clown world. And now let's get to my clown world. Ukrainian, and this one's a great one. This is such a good clown world. Ukrainian pensioner shoots down 74 million pound Russian Su-34 jet with a rifle and is awarded a medal. This is coming from the Daily Mail, but it's all over the UK media. A Ukrainian pensioner shot down a Russian Su jet with a rifle, sending it spiraling to the ground, the government agency has said. Valery Fedorovich opened fire when the enemy aircraft flew overhead in Chernihiv, according to the State Border Service of Ukraine. It is claimed he picked off the jet, which costs an estimated 74 million pounds, and footage circulating at the time showed it careening back down to earth. Although he was not seen in the video, the State Border Service has honored the pensioner and hailed his heroism and awarded him a medal. He was praised for his assistance in the protection of the state border. Footage shared by the agency shows Fedorovich walking with a rifle slung over his shoulder through the city, mostly destroyed by Russian bombardment. He retrieved some of the debris of the exploded jet and keeps it in his garage. He is one of many stories of remarkable bravery from Ukrainian civilians in the face of Putin's barbaric invasion. You have Ghost of Kiev, you had Goat of Kiev, you had the Zaporozhye Avenger, you had the Siege of Kiev, which was the best one. The Siege of Kiev has been their best lie to date. That one's been paying all kinds of dividends throughout this entire conflict. You had Snake Island. Snake Island was a really good one. You had the Siege of Kharkov as well, where they took the border posts and they snapped the Instagram photo in Russian Federation territory bordering Kharkiv. I'm pretty sure raising the flag in some of these territories, the Ukrainian flag, I'm pretty sure that's good propaganda, that's good story narration. And now you have this one, and this one is the best, because you have Valery Fedorovich, the 70, how old is he? The pensioner, we don't know his age, the pensioner who shot down a Russian plane with his rifle. And how do we know this? Well, we know this because he was walking through the fields with a rifle. Obviously, if you're walking through the fields with a rifle, well, then obviously you can shoot down planes. We also know this because he's been picking up debris from the fields and putting it in his garage. And we know that if you pick up debris in a war zone and you place it in your garage, well, then obviously you destroyed that asset in order to create the debris. Why else would you pick it up if you didn't destroy that jet or that tank? So we know that as well. And of course, we have a video taken from somewhere, sometime, by somebody. We don't know where, who, what war. It may even be a video game. We have no idea. But we have this video of some jet crashing down. And if you put all those three pieces together, well, then obviously it was Mr. Fedorovich who used his rifle to take down a plane. Because everyone knows that if a plane is flying overhead and you have a gun and you shoot it in the air, well, that plane's going to come down, right? It's just common knowledge, isn't it? You know, even a BB gun, even if you have like a little pellet gun, if you shoot it up in the air, you might hit a plane, you might hit a bird. You know, who knows what's going to come down? You know, all kinds of things will just start crashing down, right? Oh my God. And the Daily Mail runs with this. And Express.co.uk, they ran with this story. And all kinds of mainstream media publications in the UK ran with this story. And then we ask ourselves, how could someone as dumb as Liz Truss become the prime minister? If you have, I mean, my God. Of course the mainstream media is going to protect Liz Truss. If they're running stories like this, they're going to definitely run interference for Liz Truss and the political class in the UK. Absolutely. Anyway, that's the video. I'll leave it there, the Duran.locals.com. Take care, everybody.